Welcome to this week's edition of Ambitious, Awakened, and Aligned. We are on the heels of the Wake the F Up Women's Leadership Festival, and I invited my dear friend, Kate, from Rock Thompson Financial to be here today because we are going to talk about beautiful expansion, because that's what we just experienced. And also, we kind of wanted to do just a really raw, real, authentic conversation about the fact that expansion doesn't mean easy. Mm-hmm. Expansion actually pushes us into states of uncomfortable, and then it can do like a whole lot of mind fuckery, body fuckery, and we don't know what's going to happen. And we've both experienced some of that coming out of the festival. So we're just going to riff and share insights because we believe that many times people run an event or they talk to you about this big expansive thing they've done. They've changed their business, they've changed their life, and we don't always see the peel back the curtain. And so I think especially for women, we can get into this, wow, it looks easy for them, or wow, they seem to have it all figured out. And we don't. And it's not. And so we hope this will serve you, that we're going to share some of this experience. So where do we start?
Yeah, where do we start? Wow, right? It was a huge 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like a lifetime of stuff kind of got crammed in there, and it was just it's hard to articulate actually what happened. I think that you had such a beautiful vision of wanting to create something that was so unique by bringing all these different people together, and then literally the women that came to experience it, but those that were in the leadership as well, and we prepared for the year to get there, right? So this wasn't just thrown together. This wasn't haphazard. This was thoughtful, and there was a lot of time and conversations and hard stuff to work through, and some things that were like, this is so easy and beautiful and fun, right? But you don't know what something's going to be like until you're in it. So there was just a lot of trust that needed to be in that, right? And I think, at least from my perspective, it exceeded my expectations about what could be possible, and by having 50 beautiful women in a room for 2 days, wow.
Yeah, the energy was palpable.
Yeah.
And I had many people that came for day 2 that weren't able to come for day 1 just say, you walked in this room and the energy was something they'd never felt before. And I can say I experienced that, just being in the room for those 2 days. And that took all 50 women,
yes,
bringing their true selves, bringing everything in a vulnerable, real way to want to grow and expand. And you could feel people expanding. So it was, oh my gosh, it was so much energy that after, it was sort of like, I don't know how to, in it, I could take it in. After, it was just, wow.
That happened.
Yeah. So one of the most beautiful things for me, and I've told Kate, I had to make sure I didn't ugly cry, because it was really going to happen, was when she spoke. And so I wonder if you could take people on the journey of truly saying yes a year ago. And then how many times you came back to me and said no, and then yes, and then no, and then yes. And what that experience was like throughout the year, and then coming into it, the power that you had and the presence that you held, and how you were able to really shine in your light. And then we were talking money, not really exactly something most people want to talk about. We could not pull the women out of their fireside circle chats. We couldn't. It was like, no, I don't want to go back in there. I'm still sharing. So just take us on the journey, because it's so massive.
Well, a year ago when I think we've talked on our another podcast about how we came up with this idea. You had this vision, and we were like, let's do it. We did a fireside chat, in the sense that we sat in a circle together, and I asked a couple of questions about money experiences or their money, each of the women's money story. And for you had shared with me at the time that was just so impactful, that that's not something that you'd ever done before. No. But it was, it's not conversations like, what's your net worth, and like, how much do you make? And, tell me about your debt problems. Like, it's not like that. I
feel like I have to have a cigar in my mouth if we're doing that.
Yeah, like, let's really get down to business here. Not like that. It's more around money memories and money stories and money experiences. Mm-hmm. And the intention around that is that we don't, a lot of us, I would say most people, don't know how to have a safe, constructive money conversation. We can talk about an abstract, or this sucks, or I don't get paid enough, or my job sucks, or something like that, or I got a raise, but we don't really talk about what that means, or the value that there is for that for us. So that was really the vision for the talk. But for myself personally, being more on the introverted side, and maybe I was just like overly humble, and right, like I think you've helped me see that I have something that's worth sharing, and I will say that so I said yes a year ago, but I was like, but not me. Or like the other women were like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, I'm totally behind you, Laurie. Like, I'll be your hostess, and I would love to greet people, and I'll pray over the experience, right? Like, I felt very connected and strong with that. But the speaking part, I did not feel connected with at all. So you've coached me along through the whole year, and even helped me to own it, really own that that's something that needs to be shared, and that you wanted it to be part of it. And that was part of building my confidence too, that you was you need to be there, and I want you to be there. And so the coming up with what I was going to say and how I was going to say it, that maybe from your perspective, you're like, well, that's easy. Like it's what, how you might be anyway. But for me to put it down into a 15, 20 minute container felt so scary to me, because I wanted it to be perfect, right? Like I have that in me, it's got to be perfect, and I want to make sure I make the right connection. And then my confidence was like, well, I don't want to seem stupid and stumble and blush and all those aspects of things. So I really trusted you, and then did the swing back and forth with. In the summertime, we were kind of coming down to it, right? Like we were ready to have conversations around what this is the timing, this is who's going to say what, and all that stuff. And I was just like, done. I'm out, not doing it, because my nervous system was up to here. I was so incredibly stressed by it. I was nauseated by the whole thing. And I had convinced myself, and I think in some ways rightly, I'm trying to listen to what actually is good for me or not. And at the time I was like, I cannot stay in this state of stress about this. And so I will lovingly, respectfully say no. And I could literally feel my body go, oh, thank goodness. Had a great sleep, right? All of that. And I think I talked about this a little bit before, right? And then, but recognize that actually what I needed to do was work on that stress state. It wasn't avoiding it. That was actually the answer. You still believed in me and still said, I have something to share. So from July to October, that's what I was doing. So finishing what I was going to say, agonized over that. But really worked on building up my nervous system, being able to like bring the stress response down, visualizing my voice, practicing. I practiced it so many times. I videoed myself and made myself watch it, right? Like I did so many things that in a billion years I never thought I would do before, so that when the time came, and then silly things like my outfit had to, like I had to feel good in my outfit, and we had a nice, like I had a great song to come on, and so it was like actually even owning all of that stuff where I'm like, these are the things that I need so that I can show up as the best version of myself. Right?
And danced, because that actually is something that calms your nervous system.
Yeah. Yeah. And so like those are things that, a lot of those things that I learned from some of the other people that I've been working with over the last year, but also from Barry, like Barry Tesler, right? Like she is also, she was originally a dancer, and she's the one that I learned, I mentored with around this like money conversations and connections, right? And so it was just this idea of movement and how movement, before I started talking, once I could accept that that's actually what would help me to be able to speak, I was like, okay, well then that's what I need to do. And it was because we had created, the women all came with these open hearts and we created this safe space. I was just like, it doesn't matter what happens, which, you know, I don't mean that because it mattered a lot to me what happened, but I mean like I'm held. So once I had danced, once I had put on my fluvox, I put my boots on, and you had, you know, you'd given me that blessing of the, like, you've got this and you can do it, like holding my face. And I was like, I believe you and I know it. And I mean, honestly, this might seem like a massive buildup, but like it was life-changing for me. It was something that I literally never thought I could do. And then once I was in it, it was like I was floating.
Yeah.
I was floating.
You could see that.
And I'm still floating. And it's, it's one of those experiences where it's like, I've done that and I'm excited about, okay, now what else is next? But at the same time, I'm like, I did that. And even if I never do that again, like even if that opportunity never comes up again, I changed something in myself. I changed something that since I was in grade 5, never believed that would be possible. And so that was what Wake the F Up was for me.
Yeah. You taught yourself that you could do something that you never imagined possible, which is like, we have tiny ways we can teach ourselves we can do hard things. And yet when we take on the massive ones, like something that's been there since you were 5 years old.
Yeah.
But there were little pieces you weaved in that I think are so important to point out, is you made your nervous system safe by taking the tiny bite out of the elephant throughout the course of the preparation.
Yeah.
You didn't try to take the whole elephant at one time. And I think that's something that is really vital to kind of park in, is our nervous system can't handle something massive all at once.
Yeah. But
it can handle those tiny little pieces in and out. I feel safe, still doesn't feel safe. I feel a little safer now, still doesn't feel safe, right?
Yeah.
And you also supporting your nervous system in many ways like you do, which is part of what we were, really consciously trying to show people at the festival too, which then I'm curious, okay, so we're talking about that and you were so fully present in that moment. It was like watching somebody come out of their cocoon because of all of that purposeful, intentional effort beforehand. And you were held.
Yes.
I think that's...
It's both.
It's both. It was a safe place and you had prepared.
Yeah.
And so we think we're going to leave there and we're on this high. Yeah. And now you shared with me some things came up.
Yeah.
So your container that you opened for people was money.
Yes. Yeah.
So what happened after?
Well, interesting because I shared what I call chapter 1 of my money story, right? And so it's a time in my life where I needed to be very vigilant and careful about my finances and my cash flow. So, so lots of things came up like that. And the not in the first couple of days. I was just like blissed out. It was like, that was amazing. And then by Sunday, it was, like memberships that went offline, stuff that got charged on my credit card that doesn't belong there. And like not big, but annoying. There was four different things, and they were tiny little things in the grand scheme of stuff, but they totally tripped me up. They totally took me back to this like
hypervigilant.
Like I was pissed, right? I was like, I got to get this fixed. I got to do it now. I can't believe this is happening. And like it on my phone, making phone calls, like I got to fix it. And, and then I was just like, what? Like I went from here to, and it's not like everything crashed. Yeah. It was just like this trip up. It was it was a trip. And it came out of like nowhere.
So I was on a call just yesterday, and somebody was talking about we'll get the tests. And this was so beautifully put. The woman said, I would invite you to not think of them as tests. They're integration points. And of course they are. Yeah. Because you're expanding. And yet in that expansion, we're stepping into uncomfortable, like we talked about. You're still between you're still embodying that next level or next, I say next level. And also in that, I just want to say, we were born whole and who we're meant to be. So the next level isn't like you're becoming someone totally different. It's you're coming home more to the purest form of who you are.
I like that.
So in that, it's like you're finding more of that person again. You're being reminded of who she is. And yet we're always going to have these little pieces that will take us, sort of into a hang on, are you ready? Hang on, are you ready? And look at the awareness you had. You caught it, right?
I caught it. I caught it because it happened four things happened.
Right.
Like the first thing I didn't catch.
Right.
Or the second. Or the third. But by the fourth time, I was like, wait a second, there's something to this.
And then you got to integrate again. Like you got this opportunity to say, hang on.
Yeah. But it was like not after, like not until I'd like gone like a couple days of like trying to fix these things and not able to. Like dumb. Like, why isn't this getting fixed? You need to get this fixed. And so I was reminded of the same, right? I'm like, it's not a coincidence that you spoke out about money, right? And now money's coming back. The energy of that is coming back and testing exactly what you're saying, testing, right? Yeah. And so I had to say, okay, so what supports can I put into place, right, to get myself out of this vigilant state, which, it kind of did. Like, I wouldn't say I was super successful at that, because I think it's the opposite of like the energy from last week too, right? Where it's like, almost not prepared for what's going to come next. You don't know, right? But I was like intentional about then making some financial decisions that are big and which I want, and like making those things, those little things smaller, right? In my brain space and in my vigilance, right? Where it's like, no, what is it that, we're really working towards in 2025, or what are some things that I want to see happen? And said yes to those, moved ahead on those, and then the other issues
dissipated.
Done.
Dissipated. Yeah. So we're sharing these things because we want to normalize what we know everybody went through. And it's so interesting because for both Kate and I, we went through very different things, and yet we both had these opportunities to look, sort of backwards or through a different lens of what we were sharing at the festival and then what came up after.
Yeah.
So for me, I actually, we had a hectic schedule right after the festival, which was intentional, but also, I'm going to say out of our control, but we have control of everything and we chose it. But we had birthday celebration, we had football playoffs, we had my son who launched his first documentary at a film festival. So big, important things as parents for us to be there. And we wanted to be there and be present for those things. And there was then no space. So in my mind, I knew I needed some space, and I was, looking, it'll come. It'll be on the other side of this. And then
just going to do these 50 other things
right?
first. Yeah.
And then I go to the gym Sunday and I decide I'm going to do yoga. Because I've got now some time. I'm going to come down. Sunday, we were going to just have a joyful, watch football, be all excited. But I just felt my nervous system needed to come down a little bit. It was like in such an amazing high. I've got to bring it down. And so I go to the mat and I black out and I throw up. And old Laurie would be like, why is this happening to me? And I noticed it didn't that whole why didn't come up. It was, okay, take some deep breaths, try to neutralize the situation. But what is happening? And so I reached out to Jamie, who everyone got to meet at the festival, beautiful somatic support. And she actually called me, which was so unbelievable on a Sunday at the gym. And she reminded me what she taught us at the festival, which was about the window of tolerance. And she reminded me that I was so high up here in energy. And she kind of giggled. And now in hindsight, I can giggle. And I was trying to take myself right down into, let's go into like total on the floor yoga relaxation.
I'm so chill.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was trying to go to, I was crashing.
Yeah.
And I crashed.
Yeah.
And so just being able to sit with that in the last few days and then getting to Monday and having a full schedule and Tuesday and having a full schedule and reminding myself everything that I remind people is to build capacity for the needs of our system.
Yes.
I just hadn't even looked that far out to go, what will I need? And so I'm sharing this, and we wanted to share this because we want you to know we're normal, we're real, we're working through these things. Everything I said at the festival, hand forward, hand back.
Yeah.
We're always grabbing the hand of someone that's been there before us that we can learn from, and holding a hand back to support in ways that we can for those that are, a little earlier on their journey. And this felt really real to be able to share. We're doing that again, right? So everything we shared is what we practice and what our lives are like. And then we also have moments where we have to sit in some stuff and we have to work through it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Yeah. You had something you said you were going to say to me when I told you about the calendar.
Yeah. I have to remember what it is now. Yeah. We were laughing, though, about the fact that your calendar was fully booked up on Monday. And so I was teasing her because I said, well, my coach, my business coach, has been very good and clear about teaching me about looking at the entire month and making sure that if at all possible, if you need the space to give it to yourself, right? So, I stacked my Tuesday, but at least my Monday was
And
open.
I do that.
Yeah.
So I really do live by that. So it was interesting for what happened. And I think it was getting closer to sort of that last month, let's call it, leading up to the festival. I caught myself falling back into a lot of old traps.
Interesting, eh?
That I have really intentionally moved past for years now. That's such an old pattern for me. And we were head down, lots on the go, really, I'm going to say grinding it out in that last month.
Yeah.
And how easy it is for us to fall into vigilance, for us to fall into old traps of I'll do everything for everybody and forget about myself. Because I shared with you, one of my past patterns is oh, really? I actually have needs? Like, I didn't even see a decade ago that I had needs.
Yeah.
It was just all about what everybody else's needs were. And isn't it interesting when if you're not watching, when you get into that hustle grind stage, which I'm all about ambition, I'm all about the drive, I'm all about seasons where you have to give more, but you still have to pause and be really conscious of what old patterns are showing up in that.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I remembered what I was going to say now. So it is in light of that as well. So I had to remind myself on Monday, when I didn't have a bunch of meetings, I had things I needed to catch up on. But it was this idea that I haven't been in the office.
Wow.
So I owe time.
What a good catch.
I owe time, right? And so, well, obviously, I'm going to have to work extra hard this week to make up for the time that I didn't give the office last week. And then I'm so grateful that this came to me almost instantly, because this is years and years of feeling that way, where I was just like, I worked so hard last week. I was literally working all day and evening, right? Like there was aspects of it that were fun and we got so much out of it, but that was still work. It wasn't like that didn't count and now I owe some office hours. And now, I mean, I am fortunate that I don't have a boss. I am my boss, right? And so I respect the fact that not every woman that came has that freedom. But it was fascinating to me that I still applied that principle to myself.
You know what, though? I think that is so profound for what we came to know that every woman that chose to say yes was still struggling with, because they did do that. Every single woman, including myself, clearly, because I overbooked myself this week, was do I have permission to go? And so we've heard from so many women they wanted to be there.
Yeah.
And just couldn't kind of take that extra little leap of I choose me for my own personal and professional growth. We have a really hard time saying yes to ourselves. And when they said yes, there were quite a few people on the last day that said, you know what, like I actually can't stay for dinner. I've got to get back. So there's that there is that inherent sort of guilt running through of the kids need me, my spouse needs me, I must have some work I have to do, the house needs me, I've got to catch up on my emails. So no matter what capacity, whether we own our own business, we're a mom, we're a spouse, it's running rampant through us as women. And I think it's something that we recognize coming into the festival, that we want to support to change that story in any way. And even as we want to change it, we're still navigating it ourselves. So like, we've got to figure this out together. Women, we're here. We're working through it. We're talking about it. We want to figure it out together, because there were no short of 100 emails I got that I want to be at this festival. I need to be at this festival. I can't choose me. And then they didn't say I can't choose me, but underlying is we can't choose us. We really,
not even 2 days.
For 2 days. Yeah. And many came for one day because one day was all that felt we could. And there's no judgment in this at all. No judgment of ourselves in what we're navigating.
It's just what it is right now.
Is what it is. And so how do we keep just being open and honest about it and finding ways to support each other and using our voices to ask for what we need? Because what Kate and I have come to understand, and something that was massively profound at the festival, is when we ask, our spouses really support us. And both probably spent a lot of time in our past not asking and then being upset. Men's brains are actually linear. This is a truth. This is scientific and biological. Women's are a web. And so learning to ask for what we need and then watching how beautiful it is to be served, that's about us and our voices still. And our husbands were behind the scenes, making food for people, moving TVs, pumping up all the women that needed pumped up. Like, they were just treasures.
Rock stars.
Yeah. And, I think a lot of it is our lesson in learning to ask for what we need to.
Yeah. And a shout out to the fact that it's not like there was a lot of support that came into all of this, right? Yeah, this was this didn't just happen.
It was a village.
It was a village. It was a village.
It was a village.
Yeah.
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 Any final thoughts you want to share?
This just came to my mind when we said about village. So a lot of years of being a solo business woman, solopreneur, it's lovely being part of the village. Yeah, it is. I
wholly agree with that.
So find your people.
Find your people.
Yeah.
We need that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, not just for allowing me to watch you come out of the cocoon and for changing people's lives, but for being such a dear friend and support. I've said it, I'll say it again. Kate was a sponsor of the event, and without the sponsors that we had, we never could have made this happen for women. And we were very honest that we needed it as much as everyone that was there as a guest. So we want to keep creating events that are building women up in the ways that we know that we need expansion, and we need conscious leadership. We need consciousness and expansion and believing in ourselves and finding positive energy. I just thought of the one moment where Sam, who was our beautiful photographer from the beginning, and
she took our images that were part of the promotions.
And then came and shared a story and spoke a little bit at the event. And she reminded us that life is a gift. And aren't we so blessed to have this one life, to have an opportunity to just step into being our fullest selves. And so I'm just going to share that little piece from Sam as we end and say, thank you. Thank you. I love you.
Thank you. I love you too.
And we'll be back soon.